Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The air was thick with the scent of lavender and chamomile as I pushed open the door to Ella's beauty parlor, the bells chiming softly above me. It was a place of refuge for many, a secret garden of beauty rituals and whispered confidences. For me, it was the battleground where I'd confirm my worst fears. Michael was there, a charming smile plastered on his face, his eyes a shade too quick to flicker away from mine. "Ah, Mr. Sanders, right? Jenna mentioned you might stop by." His voice was too casual, the familiarity in his tone grating against my nerves. "Yeah, Jenna thought it might be good for me to see where she spends so much of her time," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. "Of course. Let me show you around. Jenna's just finishing up with a client in the water room, should be done any minute." As we walked, Michael pointed out various stations: the manicure tables, the hairstyling area, and the new line of organic facial treatments. But my attention was elsewhere, strained towards the hallway that led to the water rooms. The beauty parlor was bustling with activity, but beneath the surface, there were undercurrents of secrets being traded under hairdryers and behind the masked faces of facial treatments. I was part of that clandestine drama now, an unwilling actor in a play I never wanted to join. Finally, Michael paused near a closed door at the end of a dimly lit hallway, and here we have the water rooms for more private sessions. Jenna really is a master at the rejuvenating treatments we offer. The words were barely out of his mouth when I heard the muffled sound of laughter, unmistakably Jenna's. The laughter was followed by a deeper, resonant chuckle that could only belong to Michael. My heart pounded in my chest, the sound a cruel soundtrack to the betrayal unfolding before me. Without thinking, I stepped towards the door, my hand pressed against the cool wood. The voices became clearer, the words slicing through the air like daggers. "I wish we had more time like this, just you and me." Jenna's voice was soft, wistful. "Yeah, I know what you mean. It's been complicated, hasn't it?" Michael's reply was heavy with an emotion I couldn't name. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead as Jenna continued. "Sometimes I think about the past, how things might have been if—" "Don't," Michael cut her off, his tone suddenly firm. "We have now. Let's not dwell on what could have been." The conversation gutted me. The confirmation of her emotional betrayal was as painful as any physical evidence. I had come seeking the truth, and now that I had it, revenge seemed like the only path left to me. I had to act, to reclaim some semblance of control over my shattered life. Stepping back from the door, I composed myself. I needed a plan, something to turn the tables. As I walked out of the parlor, the pieces began to fall into place. It was time Jenna faced the consequences of her actions, and Michael? He would regret ever having met her. As the door closed behind me, the chime sounded like a final note to the life I had known. Ahead, there was only the unknown, a path paved with retribution and the hope of redemption. The game had changed, and I was now its master. I didn't go straight home after leaving the beauty parlor. Instead, I drove aimlessly, the roar of the engine a dull echo of the chaos in my mind. The images of Jenna and Michael, their laughter mingling like a melody meant only for them, replayed mercilessly in my head. But raw emotion would get me nowhere. I needed a plan, and for that, I needed allies. My first stop was at the office of an old college friend, Rick, who now ran a successful private investigation firm. The glass front of the building gleamed under the afternoon sun, a stark contrast to the dark thoughts clouding my mind. Rick greeted me with a handshake that was both firm and wary. "Dan, to what do I owe the pleasure? You look like you've seen a ghost." "It's Jenna," I said, cutting straight to the chase. "I think she's seeing someone else." Rick's expression changed instantly from casual to professional concern. "You sure about this, Dan? Because once we start digging, we might find things you won't like." "I'm sure," I affirmed, the certainty in my voice belying the turmoil inside. I heard them together. "Rick, I need to know everything." "All right, I'll help you, but I'm also going to need you to stay cool. Can you manage that?" Rick asked, his eyes searching mine for signs of the storm within. "I'll manage," I replied, though I wasn't entirely sure myself. Rick set up surveillance on Jenna and Michael, tapping into his network of contacts and resources. Meanwhile, I sought out another kind of ally, Angela, Jenna's closest friend. If anyone knew the intimate details of Jenna's life, it was Angela. I met her at a quaint cafe, the kind of place Jenna and her friends frequented for their brunches. Angela was already there, a cup of coffee in hand, her expression one of surprise as I approached. "Dan, this is unexpected. Is everything okay?" Angela's voice was tinged with genuine concern. "No, it's not," I said bluntly. "It's Jenna. I think she's involved with someone else." Angela's eyes widened, a flicker of something unreadable passing through them. "Why would you think that?" "I've heard them, Angela. At the beauty parlor, she and Michael. They were too familiar, too close." Angela sighed, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "Dan, maybe there's a misunderstanding. Jenna wouldn't—" "I need to know the truth, Angela. I thought you might help me, being her friend." For a moment, Angela looked torn, but then she nodded. "Okay, I'll tell you what I know, but you have to promise this won't come back to haunt me." "I promise," I said, though I knew promises were the least of my concerns now. Angela leaned in, her voice low. "Jenna has been distant lately. She mentioned Michael a few times, said he was a friend, but there was something in her tone. I didn't think much of it until now." Armed with Angela's reluctant confirmation, I felt a cold resolve settle in. Jenna's infidelity was no longer just a suspicion, it was a reality that connected painfully clear dots. As I left the cafe, my phone buzzed with a message from Rick. "We got something. Meet me." The pieces were coming together, and with each move, the path forward was becoming unmistakably clear. Jenna and Michael had underestimated me, and they were about to learn just how costly that mistake could be. My heart raced with a mix of dread and determination. I was on the brink of unraveling everything. The office was dimly lit when I entered, the only light emanating from Rick's desk, where he was poring over several monitors displaying grainy footage. His face, usually impassive, held a grim set as he motioned me over without a word. "What do we have?" I asked, my voice low, almost not wanting to know. Rick pointed to a screen showing Jenna and Michael entering a luxurious downtown hotel. "Caught them going into the Grandeur Hotel about an hour ago. They seemed close, too close." My jaw clenched as I watched the scene unfold, the betrayal stark against the flickering light of the monitors. "Can we hear what they're saying?" "Not from this. But I planted a mic in Michael's car. It's not much, but listen." Rick played an audio clip where Jenna's laughter filtered through, followed by Michael's deep voice murmuring unintelligibly. "Damn it," I muttered, slamming a fist on the desk. The sound of Jenna's laughter was a knife twisting in my gut. Rick paused the footage. "What's the plan, Dan? We have enough to confront her." "No," I shook my head sharply. "Not yet. I need something solid to break them apart for good. Something undeniable." "Be careful, Dan. This kind of game can turn on you too," Rick warned, but I was beyond caution now. Leaving Rick's office, I drove around, thinking until a plan began to form. It was risky, bold, and if it worked, it would blow Jenna and Michael's affair wide open. I needed to catch them in the act, publicly. That evening, I waited outside the hotel, my heart pounding as I watched the entrance. Hours ticked by until finally, I saw them emerge, laughing and touching each other with an intimacy that left no room for doubt. They hailed a cab, and I followed at a safe distance. They stopped at a popular restaurant, one known for its exclusive clientele and paparazzi presence. Perfect. I texted a contact I had at a local news outlet. If anything happened, it would be documented. Inside, I found a discreet corner from where I could watch them. They were at a table, wine glasses in hand, heads close together in conversation. It was now or never. I approached the table, my heart thudding in my chest. Jenna, Michael, what a surprise. Their expressions turned from shock to horror as they recognized me. Jenna's face paled. Dan, this isn't... Save it, Jenna. I know everything. I glanced around, noting the cameras turning our way, the murmur of the crowd rising. Dan, please, let's talk about this privately, Jenna pleaded, her eyes darting around, seeing the growing attention. No, Jenna. I want you to tell me here, in front of everyone, are you cheating on me with Michael? My voice was loud, clear, carrying across the silence that had descended around us. The color drained from Michael's face as he stood, placing a hand on Jenna's shoulder. We didn't mean for this to. Are you or are you not? I interrupted him sharply. Jenna burst into tears, her admission lost in sobs, but it was enough. The whispers started immediately, phones recording, the truth now as public as it could get. I turned and left them there, the weight of my broken heart matched only by the bitter satisfaction of having exposed their deceit. As I stepped outside into the cool night air, the reality of what I had just done began to sink in. My marriage was over, the love I thought I had safeguarded so fiercely gone. But this was just the beginning. Jenna and Michael would have their turn to face the consequences, and I, somehow, would have to find a way to rebuild from the ashes of betrayal. The days following the confrontation were a blur. I moved through them mechanically, each moment tinged with the raw ache of betrayal. My phone was a constant barrage of notifications, news articles, messages from mutual friends, and relentless calls from Jenna, which I consistently ignored. But as the dust began to settle, a creeping unease took hold. The revenge I thought would bring satisfaction instead left a hollow emptiness. One afternoon, as I sat in my darkened living room, the doorbell rang. I hesitated, not in the mood for visitors, but the persistent ringing drew me to the door. It was Angela, Jenna's friend, looking concerned and slightly out of breath. "Dan, we need to talk," she said without preamble, pushing past me into the house. I closed the door, frowning. "What's it about? If it's Jenna." "It's not just Jenna," Angela interrupted, her eyes searching mine. "It's about everything, the whole situation. You don't know the full story." I scoffed. "I know enough. I saw them together, Angela. I heard them." Angela shook her head, taking a deep breath. "You saw what you wanted to see, what Jenna and Michael let you see." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "What are you talking about?" "Jenna was trying to protect you, Dan. From something worse." Angela's voice was steady, her gaze unwavering. "Protect me?" "By cheating on me." I laughed bitterly. She wasn't cheating. Not really. Michael was part of it, yes, but it was a setup. To push you to divorce her, but not for the reasons you think. I stared at Angela, trying to digest her words. A setup? For a divorce? Why would she do that? "Because of your mother," Angela said quietly. "My mother? What does she have to do with this?" Angela sighed, looking down. "Your mother came to Jenna a few months ago. She told Jenna that she had a terminal illness, that she didn't have long to live. She didn't want her estate, all her money, to cause you grief, turn you into something she feared, greedy, bitter. She asked Jenna to push you away, to make you hate her. So you'd be free from the burden of wealth, to live a simpler life. Jenna agreed because she loved you, because your mother convinced her it was for the best." The room was spinning now, each word from Angela a hammer blow. "That can't be true. My mother would never do that. And Jenna, why wouldn't she just tell me? Would you have listened? Would you have given up everything willingly?" Angela's questions hung heavy in the air. I sank into a chair, my mind racing. The elaborate ruse, the supposed affair, my mother's strange behavior these past months, it all slotted into a narrative so bizarre, yet strangely plausible. "Your mother wanted to tell you, eventually, to explain everything," Angela continued. "But after what happened at the restaurant, after how public it all became, Jenna couldn't bear it. She left last night, went back to her family." The silence that followed was suffocating. I felt a mixture of anger and relief, betrayal and sorrow. My phone buzzed on the table, a message from Rick flashing on the screen. I ignored it, my thoughts too chaotic to focus. "Where's my mother now?" I finally asked, my voice hoarse. "At her house, waiting for you, waiting to explain everything herself." I stood, a sudden clarity cutting through the fog of betrayal. I needed to see my mother, to hear her side, to understand why love and protection had twisted so painfully into deception. "Thank you, Angela," I said, my tone more resigned than grateful. As I drove to my mother's house, the evening sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the road. The upcoming conversation loomed large, fraught with the potential for more pain, but necessary for any hope of reconciliation and healing. In the twilight of that difficult journey, I realized that the truth was often more complicated than it seemed, and sometimes, the hardest betrayals came from the best intentions.